Good evening, everyone. And we are now in Proverbs chapter 3. One of the things you would notice in the book of Proverbs is that it is not a narrative driven style of writing, meaning you don't have stories after stories, but there are themes that Solomon, the author, is actually piecing together, and the themes are in little chunks. And so the themes come from the aspect of a counsel, of an advisory, to point the young man to a place where he thinks they should be. And he's pointing out all the dangers around him as he walks around in the community, in the society. And he is a bit indirect in the way he addresses things. So he uses a technique called personification. And so we also saw how he used hokmah, the idea of wisdom, and portray that as a woman, or a good woman in this case. And so as we continue into chapter 3, we are going to tread a little slower because it's a long chapter. And so we may probably break it into two so that we can actually peel open the underlying Hebrew, so that we can actually get a better grasp at what Solomon is saying. So he begins again, my son. This is a common theme, right? In chapters 1, 2, and now in chapter 3, he is addressing my son. This is Bani. Bani literally means one who is related, right? Related in a relationship that perpetuates. And so in this case, the son here really refers to the children of Israel. And so Solomon is from the tribe of Judah. And so he relates to all 12 tribes because he's the king of all Israel. And so my son literally talks about the people, the children. In his case, we could infer that he is much older than them. And so it's a manner of speaking that he is older than them. So he is coming across as one elderly person advising the younger. And so when we come to this verse, do not. So you notice the word do not literally is an instruction. So understand this. The word forget and keep are in a way, how would you say, it's in a parallel, right? It's in a parallel. Do not forget and let your heart keep. These are quite important words to take note of. And then you find a parallel with my law and my commands. Notice it is about the author. Solomon is speaking. And so he is saying, do not forget my law, and let your heart keep my commands. And so you notice the word do not forget parallels let your heart keep. So let's break this down. What does forget mean? Forget means ignore. It also means cease to care. And the word law is Torah. So do not be mistaken that the word Torah must immediately means God's laws. It's a word that is commonly used, and you need to look at the context to see what law are we talking about. So let's just break down the words first. The second set here, let your heart keep. And heart literally means your mind. And to keep. And this word is to watch over, not keep as in treasure, but watch over. So watch out of the command. So when you talk about not forgetting, you are not you are actually paying attention. So let your mind keep would be instantly. I think we should be able to see we have an A and a B here. Torah, remember, it literally means instructions. Instructions. And in this case, it is a singular, right? Instruction. And then my commands or my commandment, this would be in plural. It really is I would say it's also a charge, an order, a command, right? An order. And so you would find that an instruction and an order even in the English language is very similar. And so this is really talking about the same thing. Pay attention. And the words that Solomon is giving is called a law, a Torah, or this other word, mitzvot, which is a plural. Meaning he's got lots to talk about, and law actually is a general grouping of a set of instructions. But the focus is on the verbs. So understand this, whenever we read in the Hebrew, the important words are the verbs. The verbs. The verbs are the actions. And so in Hebrew, the actions are paramount. It's very important. So when you read a verse like verse 1 here, my son, do not forget my law, but let your heart keep my commandments. The focus is very much on do not forget and let your heart keep. That's what I mean by the action words are the more important in Hebrew. Why? Because the Hebrew people, like the Orientals, are practical people, pragmatic people. They are very visual and very action oriented. And so they need to do something to make a living, to survive. And hence the Hebrew people are different from the Greeks, where the Greeks, after conquering the place, they really don't need to do much, and they had spent a lot of their time thinking. And so you get the age of the philosophers of Socrates, Plato, and they are thinkers. But in the Hebrew Bible, you find the similarity with ancient Indians, ancient Chinese, because they're all Oriental and they need to make a living. So they have to work, have to do things. So every hour counts. So they are busy with life. In this chapter of chapter 3, and Solomon is addressing them. So I hope that we can just capture the essence of the verbs. Pay attention. This is just two ways of saying, pay attention to what I have to say. They are instructions for life. They are orders that I'm giving you. Now, think with me that Solomon, when he writes this, is he giving his own laws, or is he giving them the laws of God and the commands of God that he has learned across the years? I do not believe that they are new Torah or new mitzvot, but they are the ones that he has read from the scriptures. And so in the essence of learning, he has developed keen insights. And so he is teaching them, these are my Torah, the Torah that I've learned from God. So it is not God giving, like God speaking to Moses and Moses writing it down. In this case, he's reading from what Moses has written, and from his life experiences, he is sharing. And he talks about this for length of days. Length of days means talking about how long, right? How long. So long, very long. And they count days. You notice the Hebrew people look at days more than they look at years. In the way of expressing you get more days to your life is lengthening life in that sense. And hence, length of days and long life is an A and a B. And so, long life means what? Length of days, long days, and long life literally means years of life. Okay, so we have length of days and years of life, and once you can see the Hebrew, you can notice that these are really talking about having a longer lifespan. If you want to enjoy life and live longer, and not only live longer, peace, your life, your days and years, and that's what it means by they, right? They will add to you. Now, the word add here literally means to augment. To augment. You already have life, but it's adding to the time that you have. That's basically what it means. They will cause, right? Cause an increase. Now, that is the verb. And so that's the focus. The focus will be on the action verbs. Now, look at this word here, peace. The word peace is shalom. Shalom literally means completeness. That's why you have peace. Your life is complete in every aspect. You don't owe God anything. And so if you don't forget or you remember my law, you keep watch over the orders, what it will do is that these will be the consequences of paying attention. So if you pay attention means you know it, you learn it, you observe it, you keep it, you make sure you pass it down to the next generation. So what does it tell you is that these are things that will help lengthen, it will add more days and years to your life. And not only that, you will also have completeness in life, completeness in the relationship with God. Shalom here not only means peace in general, but really peace that comes from God will be added into life. So it's really like a promise. So Solomon is trying to give them a promise because he knows that he is having a long life because he is watching over the Torah of God and the mitzvot or the commands or orders of God. And so in return, God is lengthening his life. As well as being a king, he is lengthening his reign as well. Now, later on, you will probably read it in the life of Hezekiah, and his life was lengthened. Now, the idea here is a promise that if you want to have a good long life, we should know the law and commands of God. That Solomon is telling the men to remember and to keep. Then he says, do not let mercy and truth forsake you. Remember, keywords are your verbs. The idea here of this verb is adzaf, forsake, leave, right? That's what it means. Let go. For example, if you have a bird in hand, forsake means you let the bird go and it runs away. That's the picture you have. And notice, these are all verb imageries. Now, what are these things that will fly away? Well, we have here is chesed. Now, the word chesed really means goodness, right? Faithfulness. Truth, in this case, would actually mean also faithfulness, and more importantly, trustworthiness. Now, chesed, and in this case, emet, are both very crucial words, and when we do a reflection, we will need to really hang on to these key nuggets. But don't let these precious truths fly away. And that's what it means here, right? Don't let it fly away. Don't leave it. Don't park it aside. Well, bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Again, you notice these are all action words. Now, to bind means to tie. These are what we call imperative words, right? To bind, to tie together. Tie together around your neck, and this would be your throat area. And it's really for your breathing, right? As if this is part and parcel of your breathing. Now, the next one is to write. To write means to inscribe. And it's very interesting because in the Hebrew, they always talk about the heart where you inscribe, but around your neck, you tie. So you notice when you hang someone, it's around your throat. But when you write something, it is always with reference to your heart, which is your mind. And here it talks about the tablet. What is a tablet? The tablet is your slabs. And so this is a figure of speech. When God told Moses to prepare 2 tablets, these are 2 slabs of stones. And God was going to write, inscribe his commandments with his finger on the tablet. And so this is a picture of the tablets, and now it is reflection of the heart. This is in your mind, and whatever you do in your heart, you make decisions. It needs to be with mercy and truth, or goodness and trustworthiness, or faithfulness and faithfulness. These are the goodness of life. Don't let it fly away. And make sure it is part of you, whether you are breathing or living. Make it a part of your existence. So you notice these are precious words, really, for us to live. And if you do that, look at what verse 4 is saying. And if you do that, you will find favor and high esteem in the sight of God and man. Now, we need to break this down because the English word doesn't do justice to this. First of all, matzah. You will definitely find. You will definitely acquire it. Right? You will definitely find it. Find what? The word here is hen. And here is where we get the word grace. And Noah found grace in the eyes of God. Hen, that's this word. And you will find hen. The second word here is high esteem. What does this mean? This really means insight. This really means intelligence. But it is not just merely insight and intelligence. It is good insight and intelligence. Good intelligence. You would find insight and intelligence that is very agreeable. When you see all these things, when you find them, you know that it's good. That's what it means by tov. It's agreeable. But look at what is the focus of Solomon. You would find hen, and in this case, the word is sekal tov, good and agreeable knowledge and intelligence. And look at these words. In the eyes, right? In the eyes of God and man. And so you have two objects here. Grace and good insight. And then both of these is seen from the eyes of God and man. So what does this mean? It means this: in a normal course of life, if you make mercy and truth, chesed and emet, part of your existence, right? You bind them around your neck, your throat, you write them in the tablet of your heart or mind. Your very decisions you make and your very breath you make, it is all about goodness, faithfulness, trustworthiness. And hence, in that case, you will always find grace. This is important. You will find grace in the eyes of God and man. And when you find grace in the eyes of God and man, it means that man and God, right? Man and God. And this one is man as in Adam. This would be mankind. In general, in the rest of society, they will be very happy with you. God will be happy with you because you have found grace and good knowledge, or in the sense that God and man will have a high regard. Maybe you can say that, a high regard of you. God will have a high regard of you because your life is consistently faithful and trustworthy. What you say, you do. What you have promised, you will execute. Every breath you take, every beat of your heart revolves around doing what is right before God, being faithful and trustworthy. And when you do that, God and man can see your life, and thereby you will find grace or favor and good insight or high regard in the eyes of God and man. And when you have grace in the eyes of God and you have grace in the eyes of man, you are in an enviable position, because you will receive goodness from both God and man. So this is a very clear instruction to My son, a young man, nevertheless, or the sons of Israel that he is ruling over them, teaching them how to live their lives. And so, finding grace in the eyes of God and man is a priority. Is a priority. We come to verse 5 and 6. Very, very famous and popular verse. So it says, remember all the verbs. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. I guess in the English, it doesn't seem to be too difficult, but we do need to spend a few moments here just to break it apart. First, the word trust. This word trust is not believe in God. Well, that is not that kind of a trust. And so let us be very mindful of what this word is. This is an imperative that says, have confidence. That is the word. Have confidence in God. Be bold in God. Right? Be bold in God. Be confident in God. Put your confidence in Jehovah. And so Solomon is giving his own personal testimony, I would say. So he says, trust God. What do you mean by trust? Put your confidence in the Lord. When you put the confidence in Jehovah, you will not think of whether it will be okay or not. Because when you place a confidence in God completely, it says with all your heart. In this case, your heart would be your mind, right? All your decisions, your choices. Leave it with God. And that is what it means by trust in the Lord. And then it says, lean not. The word lean is actually find support. Do not find support. And it says here, on your own understanding, on your own discernment, or your own knowledge. And so you just think about it. What does it mean? This is an A and a B, by the way. Trust means to place confidence in God. Do not place confidence. Maybe we should not call it an A and B after all. This is an A and an A prime. This is the opposite. Right? And so one is the opposite of the other. This A would be the positive and B would be the negative. So do not lean on your own understanding. So your own understanding is about your heart. Notice, this is in a pair. Trust means lean on. Okay? And so we have two objects. The Lord, trust the Lord, or trust your own understanding. And so this whole aspect here is, where are you finding support? Where are you putting confidence? And so here it says the confidence should be in God, not in our own perspective of life. Now, that doesn't mean that we have not learned about perspective of life. It means that you need to learn from God or learn from a teacher of God, so that while you understand more, then you develop more confidence. And that is what it means. See, confidence is not pump petrol. You can't go to a kiosk and say, I want to have more confidence in God. Can you give me 20 chapters? That's not how it works. Knowing God is a relationship. And in that relationship, we need to know more about God. And so we spend time studying the Bible, and hence we are finding ways of learning more about God and trusting Him. And then don't lean on your own understanding. Don't use your understanding as a shepherd's staff. When you're tired, you hold on to your tongkat. And so the idea here is don't lean on that, because that is not the most trustworthy element or support you can have. So what is your most important support? Jehovah, the Lord. And so he concludes, in all your ways. Ways here means journeys, right? Or your paths. And the verb here is acknowledge him. It's quite interesting because the word acknowledge really means to know him, right? Not just acknowledge in the English sense of confessing him or admitting who God is. It says, in all your journeys and all your paths and wherever you walk, make sure you know him, right? You know him. So it would be translated as, in all your paths, know Jehovah. Not just acknowledge. I think the word acknowledge has watered it down. It's not an admission of God. I would say it would be a focus on knowing God. Because the more you know God, the more you can trust or here have confidence in God. And then he, notice this word here, and he shall direct. Well, the word direct is to make level, make straight, or make right your paths. And the word paths is always paired up in chapters 1 and 2, and this would be orach. And these are really your trodden pathways. Part of your journey, basically. So what you find is this: if you know him in your entire journey of life, then God himself will level your trodden paths. And so understand this. When the Israelites were in the wilderness, they had a difficult journey, right? The journey is not smooth, is not level. So when you are walking in a wilderness, when the road is flat or level, it's a good thing. When you've got to climb the hill, come down the hill, and cut across the difficult paths, that is not a good thing. And so this word direct literally means to level your path, to make it easy to walk. So if you know God, you will be choosing the right things in your heart. And when you choose God in all your decisions and choices, and you're not leaning on your own perception of life, and knowing God will help you realize that he is journeying with you. He is walking with you, and he will smoothen your paths. And I guess you find that verse 5 and 6 really gives us a very critical view of what we call a relationship with God. You see, God seeks not men and women who are just parroting his words, just mouthing it or making it into cliches. God is not looking at people who can memorize a lot of it. God is looking for people who can make choices with his words. God is looking for people who will make decisions based on his words. And when we do that, it means that we know God that well to base our choices of life on what he says. And that is what verse 5 and 6 is all about. And when we do that, you can be sure that God is going to level your roads, meaning you would see things more clearly. You would see problems go away in perception, because much of the problems in life is a perception as well. And when we are looking at God clearly, all else pales. And so, like Job, confronted with God and God asking him a lot of questions to change his attitude towards God because he needed to know God better. And so, lean not on your own understanding in all your paths that you walk in this life. Know him, know God. Let God become your guiding light. That is what Solomon is trying to say. And in so doing, you would see things clearer. And lo and behold, your paths, your journey, the where you are going to tread is not going to be that difficult after all. Next, verse 7 says this: do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord, depart from evil. Now we can immediately see, even in the English, do not be wise in your own eyes. Now notice the word wise is hakam, right? It is coming from this is the adjective of hokmah, the adjective of the noun called wisdom. So do not think you are intelligent. Do not think, do not be crafty. Do not be cunning in your own eyes. In your own eyes, what you see, what you perceive, and what you experience. And in much of life, we can know that we may not be able to see everything. And what we see may not be the complete picture. And so Solomon is saying, don't be wise in your own eyes. Don't think that you're smart. Don't think that you are know-it-all based on your own insight of life. If we really want to know and be sure of life, so it says, fear the Lord. Fear Jehovah. Now again, I want to point out to you this verb fear is be afraid. Be afraid of God because he is a consuming fire. He will judge. When we do wrong, God is not going to close his eyes and look the other way. You must be quite aware, and all of us, including myself, has to be quite aware that God is not a God who will close one eye or close both eyes or look the other way when something goes wrong. He has given his instructions. He has given us his laws. He has given us what he wants done. And if we betray that or we defy that, and so God says here through Solomon, fear the Lord because he can judge us and he will destroy us if we are intentionally, willfully going against his decisions or his instructions. And so fear the Lord literally means be afraid. Now, obviously, we are not to be afraid of our enemies because our enemies do not judge us. Only God does. And so Fear God is the right thing in life. But when you fear God, there is another verb that comes along here. It says, depart, turn aside. So when you fear God, you will also turn away from evil, which is Ra. This is what is disagreeable. And obviously, when you talk about God, it will be disagreeable in God's sight, in God's eyes. If it is disagreeable from God's eyes, better turn away, right? Better turn away. Depart from evil, turn away from evil. Make sure that whatever you are doing with regards to evil, put a stop to it. That is what it means here. That is what it means here. And so you find this, when you are not wise in your own eyes, you will be fearing God and you will be running away from evil. If you are wise in your own eyes, you will not fear God and you will stay with evil. You see the play of words here? That is the wisdom that Solomon is imparting. If you fear God and depart from evil and don't be wise in your own eyes, it will be healing to your flesh and strength to your bones. The word health here literally means it will how should you say, it will be healthy. I think that would be a good word to use. It will be healthy to your, well, the word flesh is not quite flesh, understand this. It will be healthy to your navel. That is very interesting. And this would be your umbilical cord. And what is the purpose of an umbilical cord? Your umbilical cord is your source of health. What the mother eats, the baby is decided, right? So it will be healthy to your umbilical cord so that your center of your strength, center of health, will be good. And then it says here, it will be strength. Now the word strength here is refreshment or drink. So when you are thirsty, that is what it means. It's not strength as in muscular strength, right? But it is drink, refreshment for your bones, your substance, your frame. So these are two very crucial body parts. And this would be the source of strength, which is your bones, all right? So it is your center of strength as well. Now, basically, it's telling you an A and a B, right? That when you fear God and you turn aside from evil, it is good for your life. It is like an injection of power to you. And hence, the book of Proverbs is really to help us know God and be strong in God. And so verse 9, it says, honor the Lord with your possessions and with the first fruits of all your increase. So your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will overflow with new wine. Now there are two portions here. First of all, honor the Lord. Honor God really is to glorify. Glorify God with your possessions. Now understand this. When you honor God, Jehovah, with your possessions, This really means abundance, right? Abundance. It really means what you have that is a lot, right? I guess you can call this whatever you have gleaned from your flocks and from your fields. That's your abundance. Now, understand this. This is not a modern day concept. In those days, you have fields, is agriculture. There is what you call it. You've got shepherding. You've taken care of flocks. You've got sheep. You've got oxen. You've got camels. You've got animals. And say, so you honor God with one, your possessions, and two, the first fruits of your increase. What does that mean? It means the yield, your produce. Okay, this would be your produce, your gain. So essentially, it is about an A, and this would be the consequence. And so what is this A that you're supposed to do? Honor God, glorify God. So you glorify God by giving to God what you have. Love God, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And all your might really means everything you have. And number two, the first fruit. So God always wants the first of your produce. Why? Because when you bring your first fruits to God, first fruits to God, what does that mean? It means that you are humble before God and that you recognize that what you have comes from God. That's why first fruits are so important. The first fruits of your produce is to tell God, thank you. Because of you, I have my crops. And thereby, this is the meaning of the word honor. Glorify God. To show God in your life that you are humble and you recognize Him as God. That is glorify God. It is not to sing beautiful songs, as you can tell. It is with what you have been given. How do you honor God? By being humble and by recognizing that God is the source of what we have. And that's where the thanksgiving is. When you give thanks to God, you are honoring God. And then verse 10 says this, your barns will be filled with much, right? With much. And it will be full. Sounds like Malachi chapter 2, isn't it? Bring your tithes. That's honoring God. You are obeying what God wants. Well, that's what is said to the Israelites, right? And then your storehouse will be filled, right? And this one word filled with plenty really means to abundance. So your storehouse will be in abundance. Your vats would be the places where you keep wine. Wine. No, when you step on the grapes, that's your wine pit, basically. And so these are your vats where you step on your grapes and then the juice will flow out and it will flow into a cistern, right? A holding place. And it will overflow with new wine because there's so much grapes that you get. And so this is talking about abundance. If you are humble before God and you honor God by recognizing that He is your source of everything, then you will have even more. That is what it means. Now, very quickly, let me just complete 2 more verses. My son, that's another one of the sections. Do not despise the chastening of the Lord, nor detest his correction. For whom the Lord loves, he corrects, just as a father, the son in whom he delights. So very quickly, let's break this down. So notice this. Do not despise. The word despise here, refuse. Don't refuse the discipline of God. See, when God disciplines you, it is the best thing because God is a just God. That God is a just God. So remember what David did, right? David made wrong and God was to punish. And what did he choose? He chose to say, God, punish me. Don't punish others. Why? Because don't put me in the hands of the enemies. They have no justice. They have no love. They have no mercy. But in the hands of God, God has mercy. Now, the second line here is detest. The word detest in verse 11 is loathe. Loathe means, how should we say, be disgusted. Be disgusted. Don't hate his correction, right? Don't hate his rebuke, right? Rebuke. So you have an A and a B. For whom the Lord loves. And this is another Hebrew word we need to spend some time on later. And here it says love, ahav. When God loves, he gives. And so what does he give? He gives correction, right? He gives reproof. This is reproof. This is correction, to correct to the right. It's for our own good. And so then it gives us a very interesting picture. As a father corrects the son, in whom he likes or whom he is pleased with, right? In whom he is, he finds acceptable. And so understand this word is that when we find grace in the eyes of God, right? These are for people with grace in eyes of God. And God will want to correct us when we go astray so that he can bring us back because he loves us. So love requires discipline. Now, unfortunately, we don't see that in the modern day. In the ancient days, right, a conservative father will always have the rotan. And the rotan is not to kill the child. It is to remind the child to do what is right so that it can give what? It can give us the fear of the Lord. Correction from God gives us the fear of the Lord, that it helps us to fear God. And so when a father brings out the rotan for the son, it is not just merely to scare the son, but to make sure the son chooses the right decisions, makes the right choices, turn back from his ways of error so that he walks in the ways of the right. And that is what it means. When a father corrects the son, it means that the father loves the son. He is pleased with the son. If the father doesn't love the son, the father doesn't bother. And that is when one has to be absolutely scared, because when one's father stops caring, one's father stops disciplining. And so the Lord loves Israel. And so the Lord corrects Israel. And so the Lord gives Israel everything he she needs, the Lord also gives Israel what is coming or due to judgment. So God is this kind of a God. And so we finished 11 verses of chapter 3 so that we have a better understanding in a relationship with God, to fear him, to have confidence in him, to know him, and to love him because he loves us, and really appreciate God correcting us through his words. And with this, we come to a close of chapter 3 from verses 1 to 12.